Hi there, welcome to another video for Brent Longstaff Music. Today's video is not for grade 6, 7, or 8 band students in particular. In fact, today's video is for grade 5 students who go to Fairhaven, Carolyn Robbins, or Lawson Heights School. I thought I'd record a short video today showing you a couple of things that you can test on your own at home to see if you might be suited to play certain band instruments. Okay? Now, because of the current health situation that we find ourselves in, we can't get together and do testing in person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things you can do on your own that might give you a clear indication whether a certain type of instrument might work for you or might not work for you. The first thing that I'll do is I'll show you if you were interested in becoming a clarinet player or a saxophone player or maybe a bass clarinet player. There's one little test that you can do to check and see if your dental setup and face is suitable for playing a single reed instrument like that. What you can do is you can take a thumb, make sure it's a clean thumb, make sure you've washed it well with soap. I'm going to use my right thumb. I just washed my hands. And I want you to take it so that and hold it so that the thumbnail is down at the bottom and the fleshy part of the thumb is up top. Now I want you to make this face. Top teeth out, bottom teeth covered by lip. Open your mouth a little bit and put the thumb right in the center of your lips like this so that the thumbnail is pressing down on your bottom lip. And then put your top teeth down on top of the fleshy part of your thumb like this. After you've done that, I want you to tighten your lips around your thumb so that no air can leak out or escape on the sides, and try and blow a little bit. Don't blow so hard that you pop your eardrums and pass out. Be careful. Just blow with a little bit of pressure to see whether you can make a seal around your thumb. I'm going to show you what it should look like. I'll show you again. Thumb. So what we're testing there is to see whether you have an underbite, which some people do. An underbite is when your bottom teeth actually jut forward and are forward of your top teeth. People with underbites often have a great difficulty playing a single reed instrument because of the way your embouchure has to be set up. I have a slight overbite myself, and that actually works okay for single reed instruments. So if you can do what I just showed you, chances are saxophone, bass clarinet, clarinet, any single reed instrument would likely be suitable for you, at least as far as your embouchure goes. Another thing to consider as far as saxophones go is the size of your hands. Now, if you have small hands because you're a small person, choosing the saxophone might not be the best choice because there are some keys on the saxophone that you have to be able to reach around without accidentally touching them. They're called palm keys, and they're called palm keys because you do use your palm to play them. But the problem can be if your hand is too small and your fingers aren't long enough, as you're reaching around to try and play keys at the front of the saxophone, you're continuously going to be bumping these palm keys instead of reaching around them. And when you bump them and touch them even slightly, what happens is you get squeaks and squawks and you just can't sound good on the saxophone. So if you are someone who is capable of doing this, and if you are someone who doesn't have a big underbite, and as long as your hands are reasonably large, I mean, they don't have to be quite as big as mine, but they have to be reasonably large, then the saxophone might work for you, the clarinet, the bass clarinet, the alto, the tenor sax, they might be a really good choice for you. We don't start kids on soprano saxophone, but we usually start with altos and tenors and clarinets, and sometimes we start beginners on in grade 6 on bass clarinet as well. So, flute players. Well, the flute might be a little bit harder to test for, but I do have something here that could be useful. It is a half-empty, actually more like a 3/4 empty Aquafina water bottle. Now, what does this have to do with playing the flute? Well, it doesn't have to do with sipping the water. It has to do with an old thing that I mean, heck, I learned how to do this when I was just very little, and I'm sure that you folks have learned how to do this as well, or you've seen people do it. It works a little bit better on a glass bottle, but I don't have one, so we'll use a plastic one. It's blowing across the top of the bottle to make a whistling noise. Let's see if I can do it. There it is. All right. So you saw it took me a few tries to get that, and I know how to play the flute. What's happening there is you're blowing the air across the top of the bottle. Some of the air is going inside, swirling around and creating a tone. Some of it is escaping out the top and out the sides. And if you hold it at the correct angle, you can get that whistling sound. So if you can make that sound on a bottle, it's not exactly the same as the flute, that's for sure, but it does give you an indication that playing the flute might not be impossible for you. The flute can sometimes be a real challenge for kids. Now I'm going to say, if you cannot make that sound, then I'm going to suggest that you choose an instrument other than the flute, perhaps a brass instrument. Now, this next thing I'm going to show you is also, it's not necessarily the kind of thing you want to do in the middle of a pandemic when you're supposed to keep all of your, um, when you're supposed to keep yourself safe from like sneezing and coughing and that kind of stuff, any sort of particulates in the air. So don't do this out in public. Don't do this and like spray people. Instead, do this kind of on your own with a lot of space around you. But this is a little test to see whether you're suited to be a brass player. Now, brass playing works like this. You have to take a nice deep breath and you have to buzz your lips. So let me show you how I do that. I form my lips into a flat line by saying, not out loud, but I've put my lips in the shape of the letter M. Then I make the corners firm. You can probably see, although my mustache is probably in the way. I make my corners firm, and I buzz the air through the center of my lips. If I get this, then that means my lips are a little bit too loose. If I get this, then it means my lips are a little bit too tight. Instead, experiment by tightening and loosening your lips and see if you can get this kind of sound. Now I'll show you an even cooler and perhaps more annoying way of making a sound, like a brass instrument. Take one hand, either hand, make sure that it is freshly washed, and hold it in front of you like this, kind of like the OK sign. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a pretend brass mouthpiece with that part of your hand. If you put this on your lips, all of the part of your lips inside of the hole that's formed by your first finger and your thumb, if you can get that to buzz, then brass playing might work fine for you. The kind of sound you want is something like this. You can also try for a low note, or even a higher note. So if you can create a buzz like that in your lips, especially if you can do it by holding your hand up like this, then you might be suited to brass instruments. Now for percussion, well, one of the things that you need to know about percussion instruments is pretty much anyone is capable of playing percussion instruments. However, it doesn't mean that everyone is suited to playing percussion instruments. Percussion players have to be extremely organized, very responsible, and self-motivated. Let me tell you why. Percussionists are almost always sat at the back of the band, which means they're furthest from the band teacher. Percussionists often have parts that are somewhat repetitive, not always, but sometimes they are somewhat repetitive, which means that you have to be able to focus and continue to pay attention, even if you are playing, if you're playing the same thing regularly over and over again. Not only that, but there are a larger percentage of wind instrument players in the band than there are percussionists. In a band of 30, we really only need 1 or 2 percussionists. Everyone else is going to be playing wind instruments. And so the majority of the time that the band teacher spends teaching, a lot of that is going to be spent on talking about what the wind instruments need to do, the brass players and the woodwind players. And it's not that a band teacher is ever going to ignore the percussion section. No, we don't do that. It's a crazy thing to do. The truth is, though, percussion section sometimes has to be very self-reliant and responsible and be able to sort of behave themselves and behave in a really composed and responsible way. If you are someone who thinks that they might suit the percussion section, talk to your folks about it. Okay, talk to your parents, see if they think that you fit that profile. If you are someone who needs a lot of guidance regularly and who has trouble sort of being self-motivated and being really responsible and organized, then percussion might not be for you. A different instrument might be better. So these are just a few tips that I wanted to record for you today, some things to think about. Some kids say, I have asthma. Can I play a wind instrument? Absolutely you can. Sometimes kids who have asthma do have some challenges if they're having some difficulties with breathing. However, I've also had so many students who said that, playing a wind instrument has actually helped with their asthma because they've learned how to breathe deeply and relax. Some kids say, I'm getting braces. Can I play a brass instrument? Yeah, absolutely you can. It can be a bit of a challenge and it will take a while for you to get used to playing with braces, but I don't think I've ever actually had a kid switch from a brass instrument to another instrument because of braces. Sometimes it's been a bit of a challenge. Sometimes we've changed from a smaller mouthpiece to a bigger mouthpiece. Sometimes that works. And usually it works out okay. Sometimes kids say, hey, I'm tapping and snapping my fingers all the time and I like to dance and move. Does that mean I should be a percussionist? Well, maybe. But everyone in the band needs to develop a good sense of rhythm. So if you are snapping your fingers and dancing all the time, that's fantastic. Maybe you should be a percussionist. But remember what I talked about when I was speaking about percussionists, being very self-motivated and responsible. If you're also self-motivated and responsible and able to work on your own, then percussion might be for you. If not, then another instrument might be great, and you might be the trombone player with the best rhythm in the entire section because you're always snapping your fingers and dancing and that kind of stuff. So there's just a few guidelines, a few things that you can think about as you are sort of preparing for grade 6 band next year. Um, Thanks very much for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I can't wait to see you again.